to the movie. Before going to the movie. After? I'm going. You're going? I'm going. I'm going to the movies. I'm going to the movies. It's before and after time. Hey everybody, Dragon Movie Guy here. Welcome to another episode of Before and After. After and before? Where I tell you everything about a film I'm excited to see about it before the film, and then I come back afterwards and let you know whether I was right, whether I was wrong, or whether I should be doing something else entirely. The movie today is The Fablemans from director Steven Spielberg. This is a semi-autobiographical film about his childhood, falling in love with movies, and then wanting to grow up to become a famous Hollywood director. I love Steven Spielberg. I've loved Steven Spielberg movies my entire life. He's actually been directing movies longer than I've been alive. Yikes. There are three things that I'm looking out for in The Fablemans. Thing number one, why does a movie from Hollywood's most successful director not get a wide release? This is a movie about movies. It's a movie about wanting to grow up to make movies, directed by the most successful director of my lifetime. So why is The Fablemans not getting a wide release? Inquiring minds want to know. Also, if this is supposed to be a semi-autobiographical film, unless for some reason Steven Spielberg doesn't have the cinematic rights to his own life, why is it The Fablemans and not The Spielbergs? Thing number two, the actors cast to play the young Steven Spielberg. I know it's not technically supposed to be a young Steven Spielberg, but you can't watch the trailers for this film and tell me these kids don't look like Steven Spielberg. And that's why they were cast in the first place, because we know what Steven Spielberg looks like. We want kids that look like him if it's a movie about him. There are two actors playing young Steven Spielberg or young Sammy in this film, Gabriel LaBelle and Matteo Zorian. I have no idea whether I'm pronouncing their names correctly, but we'll go with it. So the question is, how well are they playing this character, and were they just cast based on looks alone? Matteo Zorian is playing the younger version of Sammy. He seems to capture the wonder of childhood and the love of cinema, but I wonder if he's going to bring more to the table and how much screen time he's actually going to get. Gabriel LaBelle plays the older Sammy, and I'm presuming that he's going to play a much bigger role in the film than young Matteo. Thing number three, why isn't The Fablemans getting a wide release? Steven Spielberg's been making feature films since 1972, so this is the 50th year that he's been making feature film. I know movie theaters are struggling and Hollywood as a whole is struggling, but you can't tell me that Steven Spielberg doesn't have the pull to get a wide release for The Fablemans. So, this has been my before and after. Hey everybody, Dragon Movie Guy here again. It is now after The Fablemans, and I've learned two things about The Fablemans. Horizons at the top of the screen are interesting. Horizons at the bottom of the screen are interesting. The Fablemans is a massively interesting film, especially if you love Steven Spielberg. I've been a huge film and movie fan my entire life. Steven Spielberg is probably the most influential director in my lifetime, so to see a semi-autobiographical film loosely based off of his life is interesting. There were three things about The Fablemans. Thing number one, why is The Fablemans not getting a wide release from theaters? The answer is, it is a highly personal story. There aren't a ton of explosions, there aren't a ton of controversial things that happen. It's very slice of life, and I would imagine that a lot of this stuff in this film actually happened to Steven Spielberg growing up. However, this is not a documentary, it is a film. There is a lot of personal stuff in this film, specifically surrounding the divorce of the parents. I can understand why they made it a fictional instead of a real life story. You can always say that it was just a movie and not real life, making this The Fablemans instead of The Spielbergs. If you're a fan of the movie E.T., that was also a movie that pulled heavily from Steven Spielberg's childhood. The father has just left and the family is going through a fresh divorce. To even see the mom in E.T., played by Dee Wallace-Stone, with a pixie short haircut. In The Fablemans, you see Michelle Williams as the mother with a short pixie style haircut, which is exactly what Steven Spielberg's real life mom had in real life. Thing number two, the two actors who are playing young Sammy, Gabriel LaBelle and Matteo, I can't remember his last name off the top of my head, Zorian, but he did a good job too. Both of them look a lot like Steven Spielberg, but they do a really good job of inhabiting that Steven Spielberg-esque character at two different ages. The young Sammy being the 5 or 6 year old kid that first falls in love with movies. The teenage Sammy, basically Steven Spielberg in high school picking up a camera and trying to get a girlfriend, but also being a proxy for a big-time Hollywood director who could make or break your career. No pressure. And we're getting a lot more depth of character than I thought we Hollywood. Horizon at the top of the screen, by the way. They were right. Top and bottom is interesting. And thing number 3, why is it the Fablemans and not the Spielbergs? Just to avoid the that never actually happened in that way sort of thing. You can obviously get away with a lot of things in a fictional script that's inspired by true events and having to be factually accurate about every single thing that happens in the story without taking creative license. Considering there's a dedication for Leah and for Arnold, who are Steven Spielberg's parents, and Paul Dano playing the father character and Michelle Williams, the mother, has a lot more depth and understanding to her character than we saw in D. Wallace Stone in E.T. It's actually kind of cool seeing the different styles of filmmaking telling a similar story 40 years apart, and seeing how he's portraying the characters of the parents 40 years after what he did in E.T. But I see why this movie didn't get a big theatrical release. This is the type of film that it's better for the audiences to come to the film than the film going to the audiences. But The Fablemans is absolutely worth watching in theaters, especially if you're a big Steven Spielberg fan. And if there were any doubts that The Fablemans is a Steven Spielberg autobiographical biopic, the film ends right where you think it would be, the beginning of Steven Spielberg's career. So, I give The Fablemans 4.5 stars out of 5. You can see my scorecard on the screen now. A really interesting look into a fictionalized Steven Spielberg style character. If you would like to see more of these before and after style movie reviews, please be sure to click subscribe so you can find out whenever I post a brand new video. I've been Dragon Movie Guy. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.